What the hell is going on in here?
In a world where hackers are working day and night to infiltrate your network, Jay and Penny are here to talk about it. Welcome to the Order of the Cipher.
So, Jay, I want to tell you about the most influential woman in NASCAR.
NASCAR?
Right? I know. You thought it was going to be robots or space or something like that, but NASCAR.
I know one woman name from NASCAR, and it's probably not her, and I'm excited to learn another.
Oh,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll be interested.
Yeah.
So, this particular lady, she was born in Spain but grew up in Puerto Rico. She always wanted to go to space. So she decided, I know, space, not racing cars.
Yeah.
But she decided to be a mechanical engineer so that she could go to NASA. And while she was going to classes at university, she got involved in an engineering competition. This was for Formula SAE, which is the Society of Automotive Engineers. And that just hooked her onto cars and racing. After she graduated, she got hired by GM in 1994. And throughout her more than 20 year, she currently works for Hendricks Motorsports, but throughout her 20 plus year career, she's been overseeing the tools that they use for simulation, for tires, for track management and data analysis to make the improvement of the laps.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
She, in 2015, Business Insider published an article about the 23 most powerful women engineers in the world, and she made the list. This is Alba Colon. She is amazing. She's done a lot of work for engineering, for women in engineering, and for automotive racing. She was the chief engineer for Dale Earnhardt, Danica Patrick, and Jimmy Johnson.
Danica Patrick was the name.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
So fantastic.
Right?
I don't know anything about NASCAR, in case anyone can't tell.
I don't know a lot about it either, but one of the things that particularly fascinated me is how sports are getting more data oriented. So she's worked heavily in data analysis. She's a mechanical engineer. So she works on the, from the tires to the performance, all aspects of the cars. But data analysis falls into cloud and that kind of thing. And so she's tied into I don't know if they use AWS, but cloud.
Yeah.
And data and all that kind of stuff. And it's just really fascinating to me how sports are have been going in that direction.
Yeah.
And the improvements they're making in those kinds of areas.
Data driven. I remember a story about Formula One, which I am sure directly applies here, where the volume of data coming off of the vehicles was so large that they have to have these, and weight is such a factor that they really have to balance. Do we put a computer on the car to try to deal with the situation there, or do we try to beam the data back so someone can make a determination? But when you're looking at this really detailed data, you just don't have that much bandwidth, and the car's got to, it's got to be as light and powerful as possible. And
Right. Some of those decisions are a matter of seconds. Do they change 2 tires or 4 tires? And that could be the difference between a 6-second pit stop or 13 seconds.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So analyzing all that data and providing areas for her teams to improve, she's really done a fantastic job at that.
Way to go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Alba Colon.
Penny, I think, as you know, a bit of a fan of Tesla.
Oh, just a little bit.
Just a little.
Just a little bit.
And the chairwoman of Tesla is Robin Denholm. And She, before being chairwoman of Tesla, she was CFO at Telstra, which is the Australian, sort of the AT&T of Australia.
Nice.
And a chief of operations and things like that. And as someone myself who is having to kind of learn what the heck a CEO, OO role, CFO.
Right, all of the C letters.
These are not things that I was familiar with before starting some companies. And I have kind of watched her because she seems like a pretty smooth operator. And I thought, well, where did she start? It turned out her parents owned a gas station in not particularly notable place in Australia.
Right.
And she would just pump gas and work on cars and help customers. And she also did the books. She kept track of the books for them when she was a relatively young girl. Had a bit of a knack for it. And so went on to school for economics and became an accountant. Very exciting career. What's it in there that there's like,
very important career.
yeah, everyone, there's some song on TikTok or whatever, like everyone leaves you alone when you're an accountant. And I don't know exactly how she made this transition, but she found that she was not just interested in the numbers, but she was also interested in working with the people doing the work and understanding the tech, the processes, issues of leadership, and how do we get the gang together and moving forward the same direction. And so she's bounced around through her career, working in operations, working in finance, would often just switch between those roles at these different
People
companies.
that can balance that are really amazing.
That's why she rose, because she was better at finance because she really understood operations and understood operation. Yeah, it served her well. Mm-hmm. And finally has landed at the this chairwoman role at Tesla, which the role of the board and the chairperson is the lead position on the board. Their job is to represent the shareholders. So they're supposed to look at take these controversial decisions that Elon Musk has sometimes, and people wonder, who's watching over this guy?
Do we invest in Doge? Do we not?
Yeah. Well, that's the board. They are the ones that look at these decisions well ahead of time. If they know what's going on, if there's a plan, they know about it, and if there's not a plan, they will grill.
Like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
I need to know.
Now, one of the interesting contrasts, I might be getting a little off topic here, but over at Facebook, Zuckerberg has complete control. He has more than 50% of the voting power over at Facebook. So if he doesn't like any of the people on the board, he can vote them off.
You're out.
Well, Elon can't do that.
You're out.
So he's actually got a board that can have some teeth. And she talked about this one function that I thought was kind of funny is being on the audit committee. I mean, this sounds just dull. Like, I'm ready to go to sleep already. But she said, this gave me a little chuckle, that being on the audit committee is like telling the world what the movie is like, but you're sitting outside the theater, and every once in a while, someone comes out and tells you what's going on. So good luck to her, Robin Denholm at Tesla.
Good job, Robin. So I read an article about a password manager that was compromised, and I am super relieved because I use a password manager. I'm super relieved that it is not my password manager.
Was it LastPass?
No. That's my password manager, by the way. No.
Okay, good. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
We're not schlepping anybody here, but it was not them. It was Password State.
Okay.
It's an Australian company.
Yeah.
And they were recently compromised. In reading the article, it appears that their update process was compromised so that the automatic update was directed to a different location.
and was picking up some compromised version.
Yes.
Whoa. Okay.
Right. So for 28 hours, anybody who updated within that window got the compromised version of the update rather than the actual update. And therefore, all of their passwords are suspect. So this is enterprise level password manager. So we're talking network devices, admin passwords, whatever's on your enterprise.
Yeah.
It was tied into that.
It kills me because I just see a theme where we are being sold a bill of goods. We're being sold promises, and these products that are supposed to be problem solvers, they're just not doing a good enough job. We don't have the accountability in place to improve this.
And these are the things that we trust, right? So we've vetted a particular software and we're going to use it in our environment. And then when we're told that it needs an update for security, whatever, I mean, all the updates, honestly, are security improvements in one way or another. And we want to stay on top of our security. That's a best practice. Be proactive in installing your updates, be on the ball with it, that kind of thing.
That's right.
So we trust that when it says there's an update necessary, that we need to install it. And for something like a password manager, I'm not going to wait 2 days or 5 days for other people to vet it. I'm going to say, click, yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. And I don't have any way to.
And now I'm exposed.
Yeah. I have no way to inspect it. I can't know that there's a compromise ahead of time. So thinking about the product that we both use, which is a very good one, it's susceptible to this. There's no reason, there's nothing that prevents bad code being downloaded in an update to my machine, and all of my password information is
We are
compromised.
relying entirely on the process of the vendor of the software that we're using.
Yeah. It reminds me of recently there was a white paper that AWS released that was about multi-account architectures. And one of the justifications that they gave was to have a more strict separation between your development area, your testing area, your production area, so that, I remember a company that I worked for, the code pipelines were for all areas, whether you were not a developer, but if we were testing or if we were in production, that code was coming from the same account, same build systems, and AWS is saying you've got to have stronger security, not just around where the code runs, but where the code is assembled before being pushed out. The new version gets pushed out. So.
Yeah, blast radius is what they call it. So limiting the area that can be impacted on any type of either vulnerability or exploit or even mistake by somebody who is making new code.
Yeah.
Limiting the blast radius.
Yeah, and this, DevSecOps, putting all of them together, there's a lot to it, and protecting the code itself and the deployment of the code. It's
who can you trust?
Who can you trust?
Huh?
Fascinating update.
Multi-factor authentication. How can people circumvent it? Because I thought that it was solid.
Yeah. Well, you could be doing everything right, but you've got to hope that everything's going right on the other side too. Are you talking about the zero-day exploit of the Pulse VPN server?
That is what I'm talking about. I read it. I don't understand much about it, but it freaks me out. So how does a 0-day vulnerability allow bad actors to bypass multi-factor authentication, particularly for governments, but for anybody, right? So
Yeah.
I have multi-factor authentication on my accounts. if somebody bypasses that, how do they do that? And how do I protect against that? What's going on here?
Yeah, especially since my understanding is that this is a remote execution vulnerability. This is the gold standard of exploits. I mean, this is, if you want to exploit someone, well, frankly, these are the ones that governments actually keep to themselves. So substantial resources go into discovering and weaponizing these zero-day exploits that allow for remote code execution. So what the distinction there? I mean, first of all, zero-day meaning we have, the public has no knowledge of this. Okay.
Right.
And remote code execution, meaning that I don't need to have partial access already. There's a substantial difference between having to be an insider and the ability to be a heretofore unseen outsider who can approach your system, penetrate it, start running arbitrary commands. This is getting into a VPN server that's on a network, which, very likely you're able to compromise network traffic from there. Maybe you can run.
Right. Once you're in, there's lots of places to go from there.
Yeah. I mean, you can certainly start scanning and discovering, and you can possibly even start funneling network traffic to you. I mean, this is really bad stuff. And how they did it is they really exploited poor implementation of the authentication algorithms, the sort of the procedure, the series of steps. I mean, they obviously got a hold of one of these devices and probed it, downloaded the firmware, downloaded software, analyzed it very, very carefully. This exploit requires a tremendous amount of time and sophistication and knowledge to even discover.
So it's a hardware device, like a VPN.
It sits in a rack, like a piece of networking gear, like a router, a hub, something that's mounted there.
All right.
Yeah.
So the malicious actors got one of these hardware devices and then started reverse engineering it, or something like that?
Exactly. Yes, and figured out that there were some deficiencies in the sequence that it would follow to authenticate someone. And not only could they bypass, they could bypass single-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication. Didn't matter how much authentication you had. You could put 100 factors on this thing. They could just bloop, bloop, bloop right around it, and in they go. And then they would be able to put a web shell, which is a fancy way of kind of combining the ideas of it's like getting root on a Linux box, okay? But I can access it over the public internet, which is handy because that traffic isn't inspected or is typically seen as being not triggering an alarm. So what's interesting about this is they installed a web shell, which combines the ideas of, for example, getting root on a Linux box with being able to access this over the web, because web traffic just doesn't look as suspicious as some other protocol. SSH, if they were trying to SSH.
Oh, right,
in,
because
out.
SSH is particularly for configuration and management and stuff like that, whereas web traffic.
Yeah. That's happening all the time. I can't see the signal
normal.
and the noise there.
If you cut that off, you're cutting off your knees. Oh my goodness. Another place that we trust and it's misplaced.
Yeah, two-factor authentication, that all gets undermined if it's not supported properly on the other end.
Did you hear about the 40 apps that have AWS credentials embedded in them? They've been downloaded more than 100 million times.
Yeah, crazy. Popular stuff,
and
too.
they have, they're popular things, and they have credentials embedded in them, which are exposing the companies that made them and use them.
Sitting right there, which isn't hard to find. You can connect into the phone, download the apps as binaries, and then just do a string search through them, and bloop, there come AWS codes.
I download apps all the time. How am I as a user to know? Maybe it's not my responsibility, but what are coders thinking when they build these things that go back to
it's
their company?
Yeah, it's just basic violation of good best practices, well-architected framework, things like that. Just real, lapses in judgment. So of these 100 million downloads, it's a couple Adobe products, Hootsuite, which is for a very popular tool for social media, the Weather Channel. I mean,
Right. I have the Weather Channel. I mean, these are things that nobody thinks twice about downloading it to your phone to increase productivity or to increase efficiencies.
Yeah. And you don't have to. I mean, luckily, this is not an example of something that's going to hurt you. You will not be harmed by this. They might be, the companies that are producing the apps, because they're pushing their credentials out.
For these apps, but then how do I trust the banking app that I might download?
Absolutely.
How do I trust any of the things that that I hadn't thought twice about before, making life easier and more efficient by downloading to my phone? But these are things that I provide my own personal information to. How do I trust those now?
I don't know. No, trust has definitely been broken with these. There's nothing special about them. I mean, I don't want to pin this all on them.
Fair.
It's demonstrating a point.
Right. It's demonstrating a point that app development is closer to security.
Yes.
And the security of my information, but the security of a network than it ever used to be. It's getting closer and closer and closer.
There is
app development and security.
There is no distinction to be made. There's no meaningful distinction to make between dev and ops, right? This is the idea that you've got the people that write the program, and then you've got all the mechanisms and tooling and compute and storage and everything that's required to actually deliver that running product to your customer. Okay, so there's been this wall, and there can no longer be a wall. You just have to blend all of that.
It used to be that you make the app and then you test the app and then you add security or something like that. Well, the security needs to be when you make the app.
Yeah.
Now.
From the beginning.
I mean, from the beginning, it really needs to be right here, and then everything else stems after that.
Yeah. This is scary stuff, a real loss of trust here.
Right. So we have the Finnish breach.
Yes.
That's a ransomware kind of thing.
Oh, that was really cool ransomware.
Yeah.
Because it was individual ransomware.
Yeah. So what they ended up doing was, it was a guy who put together a service for psychoanalysis, and he gave vouchers to the analysts, and then people could basically sign up and they would get appointments, and it made it easier for the Finnish people to do that. So then more people were signing up for it, and then the analysts would put their notes into the cloud in the database, and there were limited layers of security to begin with, and then it seems like what might have happened is that the administrators wanted to do that remotely, so they peeled back the firewall, and so for a year or more, there was not even a firewall protecting the database that had all the therapist notes, and it was easy to take. And then the ransomware people attempted to contact the company first and didn't get a response, so turned around and contacted the victims, the patients, and said, "We're going to expose all your stuff. It's very fascinating, and I feel bad for, I mean, some people were like, Johnny on the spot, don't expose my stuff. I'm going to pay you Bitcoin. And other people were like, I hope that it doesn't get exposed. But what do we find fascinating about, or interesting, maybe not fascinating, but interesting about the techniques used in this ransomware attack?
They couldn't get what they wanted from the company that had all the data, so they started going after the customers. And I think this is a really interesting evolution, and I think we will see more targets like this where they can double dip. Why not get it from both?
Right. If we're not getting a response, or even if we do get a response from the company itself, then if we have a database of names and information, why not double dip, as you said, and get it from both?
Yeah, work both sides.